Have you ever wondered why it's so common for bananas to show up on our counters underripe, maybe even green, and then before we know it happened, they look like this one where it's not just ripe. This is very ripe, bordering on overripe. It all starts with our optimism bias. Well, really, it starts with us buying bananas. Because when you buy bananas with the intent of eating them, but also the idea in your mind that if you don't eat them, you can turn them into banana bread, you're setting yourself up for the intention action gap, which is a psychological phenomenon made up of a few different psychological principles. The first is our optimism bias, which is basically this idea that I think my future self will have more motivation and more energy than my current self to do something like turning an overripe banana into banana bread, which is then that then leads into our planning fallacy, which is my belief that my future self will not just have more motivation and energy, but they'll also have more time and more capacity to actually make banana bread. And the reason that it becomes a planning fallacy, like the reason it doesn't work out, is because that's where we introduce or that's where we encounter decision fatigue. Because to actually make banana bread requires you to do several steps. Like that's not a hard task if you bought bananas with the intention of making banana bread. But if you bought bananas to eat them and now you're trying to figure out how do I fit making banana bread into my life, you're actually pretty unlikely to do it because it takes a lot of extra steps. And that, kind of altogether, is why we have so many bananas on our countertops that end up getting overripe to the point where we end up throwing them away. So maybe next time you have some bananas on your counter and you're like, I think my future self will turn those into banana bread. Maybe instead, either just eat one then, or peel them and put them in the freezer so that when you actually have time to plan to make banana bread, you can.